Welcome. We are looking at the latest edition of the WM Digest.
Right.
It's a newsletter dated July 10th, 2026, from the International Waldenstrom Macroglobulinemia Foundation, or the IWMF. And these sources provide a really fascinating look into a rare disease ecosystem.
They do, yeah. It's where scientific breakthroughs, grassroots support, and holistic wellness all kind of intersect.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because usually medical literature is pretty dry, right? It's heavily peer-reviewed. But a community newsletter feels fundamentally different.
It feels different because it serves a totally different function. When you read a formal medical journal, you're consuming clinical data that has been heavily distilled and often delayed by years of peer review.
Right, it takes forever.
Exactly. But community newsletters like the WM Digest, they are just absolute treasure troves of insight. They capture the real-time, messy, hopeful evolution of patient care and advocacy.
Yeah.
You're looking at the lived experience of the disease. You see where the funding is flowing this week, what complications patients are managing today, and how a global community pulls each other forward.
And it seems like taking ownership of that lived experience is the first priority here, starting with their actual identity. The newsletter opens by saying the publication itself just got a new name chosen by voters.
Oh.
Yeah, it's now the Waldenstrom Digest, or just WM Digest. But the critical detail is a grammar note. Based on community feedback, they've made it official. The disease name going forward is Waldenstrom, not Waldenstrom's. They dropped the apostrophes.
Which is a huge shift.
Yeah, my initial thought was, why does a grammatical shift like that matter in the medical world? But looking closer, by dropping that possessive, it's like they're taking ownership of the disease rather than letting the disease own the patient.
Exactly, and that boundary is historically and psychologically vital. I mean, historically, medicine leaned heavily on possessive eponyms, naming a disease after the doctor who described it.
Right, like Dr. Jan Gustav Waldenstrom in this case.
Right. But over the last decade, advocates have pushed back. The disease doesn't belong to the doctor. And more importantly, it doesn't own the patient. Removing the possessive shifts the whole framing. It's a profound reclaiming of personal agency.
Wow. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And taking psychological ownership is step one, but to actually fight it, you need immense financial firepower. Which brings us to the July issue of the IWMF's quarterly magazine, The Torch.
Ah, yes, the big funding news.
Yeah, they detail a historic $3 million pledge from the Bliss family. This is the largest single gift in the foundation's history.
That's incredible.
And it's earmarked specifically for cellular therapy research. So instead of traditional chemo, we're talking about weaponizing the patient's own biology to fight the cancer.
And these funds intersect beautifully with a new addition to the international workshop on Waldenstrom's Macroglobulinemia, or IWWM, coming up this October.
Oh, right. They're adding a component designed specifically for patients and advocates. They are literally bringing patients into the workshop room.
Which is so rare. The people receiving the reprogrammed cells are part of the scientific conversation alongside the researchers. It dissolves that barrier between the lab and the living room.
Now, a $3 million pledge is massive, but the financial resources of an advocacy org mean very little without the people actually executing the day-to-day care.
Absolutely true.
And I want to spend some extra time on the next update because it's about a major staff transition. It's bittersweet news regarding Shelly Postek, who has a Master of Social Work and was the Director of Community Engagement and Support.
Yeah, her departure is a really big deal for the foundation.
She is leaving for an in-person opportunity. And reading about her 7.5-year tenure, which started in 2019, by the way, you realize how much heavy lifting she was doing.
Well, starting in 2019 means she navigated this vulnerable group through the height of the global pandemic.
Exactly. And the newsletter uses this striking metaphor for her legacy. It says she cultivated a garden of support. And they specifically credit her for growing crucial programs like Lifeline, the Travel and Lodging Assistance Program, their e-news, and the Integrative Wellness Program.
A garden requires constant tending, and she was clearly doing that work every day.
Yeah. Thinking about her role, the image that came to my mind was the keystone of an arch. For a newly diagnosed, overwhelmed patient, Shelly was often that very first point of contact holding everything together.
The keystone analogy is perfect. I mean, the text mentions her specific traits, her steady hand, eagle eyes, and warm heart. And that combination is so necessary. We often separate medical treatment from logistical reality, but they're deeply intertwined.
How so?
Take the Travel and Lodging Assistance Program. If a patient can't afford a hotel near a major research hospital, they simply can't access the specialists. By solving lodging, a social worker is directly altering a medical outcome.
Wow.
And the integrative wellness program tackles the crippling anxiety of a rare diagnosis. Empathetic, consistent support from a single individual like Shelly can literally change the course of a patient's journey.
And they included a quote from her where she reflected on her time there. She said,
"It has been an honor and a wonderful experience working at IWMF over the past 7.5 years. I look forward to watching all the incredible progress being made to positively impact the lives of those affected by WM, and I will forever cherish the relationships and connections I have made at this fabulous foundation."
It's a profound tribute, and her mention of incredible progress is the perfect bridge to the clinical updates happening right now.
yeah, let's talk about what that progress looks like on the ground. The newsletter moves to EHA 2026, the European Hematology Conference in Stockholm. Global partner manager Hannah Mubarak captured a video interview with Dr. Dima El-Sharkawi.
Right, from the Royal Marsden Hospital.
Yeah, and the encouraging update is that the focus is shifting to a brighter future and better quality of life through continued advances.
That distinction is paramount. Early cancer treatments kept you alive, but often left you physically devastated. These updates show the science is so refined now that patients can expect enduring remissions without sacrificing daily functionality.
But to understand this current progress, we have to look back at a foundational pioneer, Dr. Peter Bing, who recently passed away on June 10th, 2026.
A true visionary in this space.
And just to clarify real quick, Dr. Bing is unrelated to Bing-Neal syndrome. We'll touch on that complication later. But Dr. Bing supported the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, establishing the Bing Center for WM in 1999. It was named for him in 2005, and it's now the world's largest referral center for WM, led by Dr. Stephen Treon.
Establishing a dedicated center for a rare disease in 1999 required immense foresight.
So help me understand the significance of the Bing Center's discoveries. Because they found familial WM, and they identified the MYD88 gene mutation. They even show a photo of Bing and Treon from 2008, 3 years before the MYD88 announcement. How did identifying that mutation pave the way for targeted therapies?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's about finding the root cause. The MYD88 gene, specifically the L265P mutation, acts like a broken biological thermostat. It gets stuck on telling B cells to endlessly multiply and pump out a heavy protein called IgM.
Okay, so it just floods the system.
Right. Dr. Bing's funding provided the lab infrastructure to find that broken thermostat. Once you identify the genetic glitch, pharma companies can design targeted therapies to enter the cell and turn that thermostat off.
Without damaging healthy tissue.
Exactly. His philanthropy directly resulted in the targeted therapies patients use today, which is why the IWWM established the Peter Bing Humanitarian Award.
That is an incredible legacy. But let's talk about the lived reality of those broken thermostats, because that heavy IgM protein causes a lot of complications, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It thickens the blood, leading to a cascade of systemic issues.
And the newsletter addresses this head-on with their summer video series. They focus heavily on WM's complications. They have Dr. Stephen Ansel doing a complication conversation. Then Professor Monique Minima covers peripheral neuropathy, cold agglutinin, and cryoglobulinemia.
All directly related to that IgM protein.
Right. Dr. Stathis Kastridis talks about amyloidosis and Bing-Neal. Professor Shirley Desa runs the Nerve Center, and Kate Mimkin, an RN, covers skin issues. But here's where it gets really interesting. The patient engagement is off the charts.
Yeah, the quiz scores are amazing.
A 96% average on WM basics and 91% on initial treatment options. That is a highly educated patient population.
It shows that patients are becoming the chief executives of their own care. They aren't passive recipients anymore.
Speaking of being the CEO of your care, they highlight an Empowered by AI watch party on July 15th on Zoom. It features Lisa Marquette-Porat and Enon Reddy from B1 exploring the intersection of AI and patient empowerment. Now, let me push back for a second. Is AI genuinely useful for a rare disease patient right now, or is it just a buzzword? I mean, AI hallucinations are a real thing.
It's a totally fair question. Using AI to self-diagnose would be highly risky, but that's not how it's being deployed here. Imagine a newly diagnosed patient getting a 50-page pathology report full of jargon like MYD88L265P.
It's like reading a foreign language.
Exactly. The B1 Watch Party focuses on using AI as a translation tool. It parses the dense medical record, translates it into plain English, tracks symptom frequency, and structures high-priority questions. It synthesizes the data so a patient can actually maximize a 15-minute consultation. It empowers them to navigate complex data safely.
Okay, that makes sense. It levels the playing field. But while virtual watch parties and AI are great for global reach, the newsletter also shows there is no substitute for human-to-human localized connection.
Absolutely.
They share on-the-ground updates from Florida. 13 people met at a Bonita Springs library in June, and 14 gathered at Speaks Clam Bar in Bradenton in July, just hanging out, sharing a meal.
Which is so normalizing.
And the attendees ranged from newly diagnosed to 20 years post-diagnosis, but they were all united by one major piece of wisdom: the vital importance of having a WM specialist on your care team.
Because a general oncologist might see one case of Waldenstrom in their entire career. A specialist sees the subtle variations daily. That peer-to-peer confirmation is just invaluable.
Yeah, and they're expanding that support net virtually, too. They have upcoming affinity groups, an LGBTQ plus group on July 18th, and Young WM on July 25th. Plus, they list crucial financial funds open to U.S. patients, like the HealthWell Foundation, Cancer Care, Blood Cancer United, and Total Assist.
This raises an important question, though. When a foundation provides financial aid, education, and peer support, how does a patient treat their whole self, not just their disease?
Right, because the body takes a toll, and they cover that in the Living Well section. On July 23rd, they have an event with Rommel Rami Rones. He's a champion martial artist and scientific consultant at Dana-Farber Harvard.
Oh, his work is fascinating.
Yeah, he uses ancient practices like Qigong, Tai Chi, and meditation to help patients manage severe symptoms, like the crushing fatigue and peripheral neuropathy we mentioned earlier.
It really is the epitome of comprehensive care. You have cellular therapy targeting rogue cells at a microscopic level, while Tai Chi regulates the macro nervous system. It lowers cortisol and helps the patient physically and mentally endure chronic disease management.
So what does this all mean? We started by looking at a community newsletter, but we unpacked so much. From a simple name change to reclaim identity, to a $3 million pledge for cellular therapy. We honored legends like Shelly Postek and Dr. Peter Bing, and looked at how patients are using AI tools and ancient Tai Chi practices.
It's incredible. And I'd leave you with this final thought to mull over. Notice how the timeline of medicine is shrinking. Dr. Bing helped found a center in 1999 that led to massive genetic discoveries just over a decade later. Today, patients are casually using AI and anticipating cellular therapy. Consider what the next 10 years might look like for rare diseases if advocacy, technology, and human connection keep overlapping at this speed.
Wow, that is an exciting thought. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the WM Digest. Keep exploring, and remember, even in the murkiest diagnostic waters, you never have to navigate them alone. Catch you next time.